that beautiful, terrible world that had forged humanity in fire and blood. Tomorrow, the galaxy. The Krath Armada arrived in a blaze of light that lit up the darkness of space. 57 warships, each one bristling with weapons and shields, emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. It was a sight meant to inspire fear and awe. The War Marshal stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled, his sharp teeth gleaming. "There," he hissed, pointing at the tactical display. "The human fleet. 5 pathetic ships hiding in an asteroid field like frightened prey. This will be easier than I thought." His tactical officer studied the display more carefully. "War Marshal, I'm reading unusual energy signatures from that large vessel in the center. It appears to be a modified colony ship." "A colony ship?" The War Marshal laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "They're using a civilian vessel as a warship?" "The humans are more desperate than we realized. All ships advance in formation. Destroy everything!" The massive Krath fleet began moving forward, their shields glowing with power. They expected the humans to scatter or perhaps make a desperate suicide charge. They did not expect what happened next. Admiral Hune watched the approaching armada on his display and felt strangely calm. "All ships hold position. Wait for my signal. Minji, open a channel to the Krath fleet." "Channel open, sir," Specialist Minji reported. "Krath War Marshal," Hyun said, his voice echoing across space. "You came here for revenge, for honor, for a lesson. Today you'll get all 3, but not the way you expected." The War Marshal's face appeared on the screen, his scales dark with rage. "Surrender now, human, and perhaps we will make your deaths quick." "We don't surrender," Hyun replied. "We're from Earth, we don't know how." He gestured to Minji. "Cut the channel. Activate the harpoon mines." Throughout the asteroid field, hundreds of small devices came to life. They had been hidden among the rocks, invisible to the Krath scanners. Now they shot forward on chemical thrusters, ancient technology that most species had abandoned centuries ago, but that worked perfectly in the vacuum of space. The harpoon mines struck the lead Krath ships and attached themselves with magnetic clamps. Then came the chains, physical metal links that connected each mine to another. Within seconds, a dozen Krath vessels found themselves literally chained together. "What is this?" the War Marshal shouted. "These are barbaric weapons." "This is not civilized warfare." "We're not civilized," Hyun said to himself. "We're human." There's a difference. The chained mines detonated, not all at once, but in sequence, creating a wave of explosions that rippled through the Krath formation. Ships that were bound together couldn't maneuver. Their shields collided with each other. Their formations collapsed into chaos. "All ships, attack now," Hyun ordered. The human fleet and their allies erupted from their hiding positions. The modified colony ship, now a flying fortress, opened up with every weapon mounted on its hull. Plasma cannons, railguns, missile pods, and even old-fashioned explosive shells poured into the confused Krath formation. Captain Nari's Indomitable led the charge, her ship screaming through the asteroid field at speeds that made her crew press against their restraints. "Target the command ship. We cut off the head, the body dies." The battle turned into absolute chaos. The Krath had numbers and firepower, but their formation was destroyed. Ships crashed into each other, trying to avoid the asteroid field. The harpoon mines kept deploying, chaining more vessels together. The careful military formation became a nightmare of tangled metal and exploding shields. Commander Doyen's fighter wing dove into the mess like wolves among sheep. His pilots targeted engines and weapon systems, crippling ships rather than destroying them. "Remember," Doyen called over the radio, "disabled ships are ships the enemy has to protect. Make them choose between attacking and defending." The Krath fought back with desperate fury. Their weapons tore into the human ships. Hyun's flagship shook as plasma bolts hammered against its shields. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. "Shields at 30%, Lieutenant Jiho shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Seal the breaches and keep firing," Hyun ordered. "We don't stop until they do." On the Indomitable, Captain Nari watched as her ship took hit after hit. A plasma bolt punched through the shields and struck the bridge directly. The explosion threw Nari across the room. She hit the wall hard and her vision went dark for a moment. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the deck. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. She tried to move her legs and felt nothing. "Captain," her executive officer rushed over. "You need medical attention now." "Help me up," Nari gasped. "Get me to secondary control." "Captain, you can't." That's an order, Nari shouted. This ship doesn't stop fighting while I'm still breathing. 2 crew members lifted her and carried her to the secondary control room deeper in the ship. It was a cramped space meant for emergencies, but it had working controls. They propped Nari up in a chair and she immediately began issuing orders. All weapons focus on the Krath command ship. I don't care if it kills us. That ship dies today. The indomitable, burning and bleeding atmosphere into space turned toward the massive Krath flagship. It was 3 times the size of the human dreadnought. Its shield still strong, its weapons still firing. But Nari had made a decision. All hands, this is the captain, she said over the ship-wide communication system. Evacuate to escape pods. That's an order. You have 2 minutes. Admiral Hyun's voice came through immediately. Nari, what are you doing? Finishing this, sir, Nari replied calmly. The Indomitable is done. But she's got 1 more fight left in her. Captain, belay that order. We can still— Admiral, with respect, this is my ship and my call. Tell my family I died doing what humans do best. Not giving up. Escape pods began launching from the Indomitable as the crew evacuated. But Nari remained at the controls, steering the dying ship directly at the Krath flagship. The War Marshal saw what was happening and screamed orders, but it was too late. Then, just as the ships were about to collide, Nari felt something odd. Her chair was moving. She looked down and realized she was sitting in an ejection seat. Admiral Hyun had overridden her controls remotely. No, Nari shouted. I wasn't finished. The ejection system fired, launching Nari out of the ship in an armored capsule just seconds before impact. She tumbled through space, watching as the Indomitable crashed into the Krath flagship at incredible speed. The collision was catastrophic. The Indomitable's reactor went critical on impact, and both ships exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up the entire battlefield. The shockwave caught 15 more Krath vessels, crippling them instantly. The Krath fleet broke. Their command ship was gone. Their formation was destroyed. Their pride was shattered. The remaining vessels, nearly 20 of them still functional, turned and fled. They had come to punish the humans. Instead, they had been taught a lesson they would never forget. Admiral Hyun watched them run and felt no satisfaction. 37 Krath ships destroyed or disabled. But the cost had been terrible. The Indomitable was gone. The destroyer Relentless had exploded early in the battle. 3 other human ships were so badly damaged they might never fly again. The Allied fleet had taken heavy casualties too. Find Captain Nari's escape pod, Hyun ordered, and get me a casualty report. Lieutenant Jiho worked his console with shaking hands. Captain Nari is alive, sir. Injured but alive. Casualty report coming in now. We lost 3,000 crew members, sir. Across the fleet, Hyun closed his eyes. 3,000 humans dead, but 45,000 Valerians alive, and a message sent to the entire galaxy. Sir, Jiho said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Coalition. They want to speak with you immediately. Tell them I'll talk to them later, Hyun said. Right now we take care of our wounded and honor our dead. The politics can wait. He looked out at the debris field that had been a battle. Somewhere in that mess, good people had died fighting for others. It was a very human thing to do. On the Krath homeworld, the news of the defeat sent shockwaves through the Empire. Their invincible fleet had been destroyed by a handful of human ships. The War Marshal was dead. Their pride was broken. But more than that, their enemies within and outside the Empire saw weakness. The Krath Imperium began to crumble as rebellions erupted across their territory. The humans had not just won a battle. They had toppled an empire, and they had done it to save people they barely knew. It was, Admiral Hyun thought, a very human victory indeed. The human fleet had 6 days to prepare for the impossible. Admiral Hyun gathered his senior officers in the damaged conference room aboard his flagship. The walls still showed scorch marks from the last battle, and temporary hull patches covered several holes. But the humans who sat around the table looked determined rather than defeated. Let's start with what we know, Hyun said, bringing up a tactical display. The Krath are coming with 57 warships. They're angry. They want revenge, and they're going to hit us with everything they have. We have 5 ships, 3 of which are badly damaged. Anyone want to tell me how we're supposed to win? Lieutenant Jiho cleared his throat. Respectfully, sir, I don't think we can win. Not in a traditional sense, but we might be able to survive. I didn't ask about surviving, Hyun said. I asked about winning. Captain Nari, still nursing her broken arm, leaned forward. Sir, we have one advantage. The The Krath think they know how we fight now. They've seen the footage from our first engagement. They'll expect us to use aggression and close-range tactics. We need to surprise them. Engineer Hana, who had barely slept in 3 days while repairing the damaged ships, spoke up. I might have something. The Valerian colony ship, the Sanctuary of Stars, is still here. It's too damaged to make a long journey, but its hull is intact. It's massive. We could use it. Use it how? Hyun asked. As a fortress, Hana said, her eyes lighting up with the kind of enthusiasm that engineers get when they have a crazy idea. We strip out everything we don't need. We reinforce the hull with our spare plating. We mount every weapon system we can salvage from our damaged sections. Then we position it in a debris field and force the Krath to come to us. Commander Taeyang, the Marine Corps leader, nodded slowly. Urban warfare tactics. We use similar strategies in the corporate wars back on Earth. Create a defensive position that negates the enemy's numerical advantage. Force them to fight on our terms. It could work, Jiho said, running calculations on his tablet. If we position the colony ship correctly, the Krath fleet will have to break formation to engage. Their numbers become a liability in close quarters. Hyun studied the plan. The Valerians would have to agree to let us use their ship. And we'd be betting everything on this working. If the Krath don't take the bait, they'll just surround us and pound us to dust from a distance. That's where the second part of my plan comes in, Hana said with a grin. We've been developing some experimental weapons. Things that the Coalition banned because they considered them too crude. Kinetic harpoon mines. Dr. Yuna, who had been listening quietly, looked horrified. Those are barbaric. They physically chain ships together before exploding. The Coalition called them weapons of terror. The Coalition also can't fight worth a damn, Hana replied. These mines will force the Krath ships into close proximity with each other. Their own fleet becomes an obstacle. It's beautiful in its simplicity. Hyun looked around the table. Anyone else have concerns about using weapons the galaxy considers barbaric? There was a long silence. Finally, Nari spoke. Sir, they're coming to kill us. To make an example of us. I don't care if our weapons are considered civilized or not. I care about my crew going home alive. Agreed, Taeyang said. We fight with everything we have. Hyun made his decision. Hana, start modifying the colony ship. Taeyang, prepare your Marines for boarding actions. If we disable any Krath ships, I want crews on them immediately. Jiho, work with our communications officer Minji on psychological warfare. I want to make the Krath nervous before they even arrive. Over the next 4 days, the human fleet worked around the clock. The Valerian colony ship was transformed from a civilian vessel into a flying fortress. Weapons platforms dotted its hull like the spines of a sea urchin. Its massive structure was positioned in a dense asteroid field, creating a maze of rock and metal. Specialist Minji came up with a plan that made even the hardened Marines uncomfortable. She wanted to broadcast human warfare footage to the approaching Krath fleet, images of ancient battles, footage from Earth's bloodiest conflicts, recordings that showed exactly what humans were capable of when they decided to fight. This is genius, Jiho said, reviewing her proposal. The Krath think they know war. They've been raiders and conquerors for centuries, but they've never encountered a species that has been at war with itself for its entire existence. Minji nodded. Humans have fought more wars in the last 1,000 years than most species fight in 10,000. We know violence in ways the Krath can't imagine. If we show them that, it might make them hesitate. Hesitation in battle is death. The broadcast went out 2 days before the Krath fleet was due to arrive. The Krath war marshal received them aboard his flagship and watched in growing unease. He saw human soldiers fighting in trenches filled with mud and bodies. He saw weapons that killed thousands in single blasts. He saw humans fighting in frozen wastes, burning deserts, and toxic jungles. He saw a species that did not just accept death, but seemed to embrace it as a necessary part of victory. One of his commanders watched alongside him. War Marshal, these humans, they have been fighting for their entire history. Every war we have ever fought, they have fought 10 times over. Perhaps silence, the War Marshal hissed, but his scales had paled. These broadcasts are meant to frighten us. Do not fall for their tricks. But the footage kept coming. Humans fighting with broken weapons. Humans charging into certain death to save their comrades. Humans surviving wounds that should have killed them and returning to battle days later. The message was clear. You cannot scare these beings. They are fear itself. On the human side, preparations continued. Dr. Yuna worked with the tactical team to identify Krath weaknesses. As a reptilian species, they had different physiology than humans. They were stronger and faster in short bursts, but they tired more quickly. Their eyes were adapted for different light spectrums. Their hearing was less sensitive to certain frequencies. "We can use this," Una explained to Admiral Hune. "If we vent sections of our ships to create extreme temperatures, the Krath will be sluggish. If we use high-frequency sound weapons in boarding actions, they'll be disoriented." "You're talking about biological warfare," Hyun said carefully. "I'm talking about using our knowledge of their biology to our advantage," Una corrected. "Just like they would do to us if they understood human physiology better." "This is war, Admiral. We use every advantage we have." The day before the battle, something unexpected happened. 17 ships arrived at the human position. They were coalition vessels from a dozen different species. Leading them was Vessel Master Theron aboard a repaired Valerian ship. Hyun's communications officer patched through the transmission. "Admiral Hyun," Theron said, his voice stronger than it had been after the rescue. "The Galactic Coalition may move slowly, but we Valerians do not forget. You saved our lives when you had no obligation to do so. We may be weak, but we will stand with you." Other captains chimed in. A crystalline ship captain spoke in chiming tones. "The Krath have raided our colonies too. We're tired of being victims. If the humans are willing to fight, then we will fight beside them." An insectoid captain clicked its mandibles. "You humans are terrifying, but you're terrifying in defense of others. That makes you allies. We stand with you." Hyun felt something he had not expected to feel. Not just gratitude, but respect. These species were fragile compared to humans. Their ships were weaker. Their crews were more vulnerable. But they were here anyway. "Thank you," Hyun said simply. "Positions yourselves in the defensive formation. When the Krath arrive, stay at range and provide support fire. We'll handle the close-range fighting." Captain Nari appeared on another screen. "Admiral, all systems are ready. The colony ship fortress is armed and operational. The harpoon mines are deployed throughout the asteroid field. The Marines are ready for boarding actions. We're as prepared as we're going to be." "Good," Hyun said. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we show the galaxy what humans can do." That night, Hyun walked through his ship's corridors. He saw crew members making final checks on equipment. He saw Marines sharpening combat knives. He saw engineers reinforcing hull sections with whatever materials they could find. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew that many of them would not survive the next day, but no one was complaining. No one was asking to retreat. Lieutenant Jiho found him near the observation deck. "Sir, the Krath fleet will arrive in approximately 8 hours. Sensors show they're maintaining formation and maximum speed. They're confident." "Let them be confident," Hyun said. "Confidence makes you careless, and careless gets you killed." Jiho hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering him. "Sir, do you really think we can win?" Hyun looked out at the stars. The same stars his ancestors had dreamed of reaching for millennia. "Lieutenant, humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth because we were the strongest or the fastest. We became dominant because we refused to quit. We fell down, we got back up. We got hurt, we kept fighting. We lost battles. We learned from them and won the war. That's what makes us human. Tomorrow the Krath are going to learn that lesson the hard way." "Yes, sir," Jiho said, standing straighter. As Hyun returned to his quarters for a few hours of rest, he thought about Earth one more time. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within 6 hours, every major civilization in the Galactic Coalition had seen the battle footage. The Krath vessel that escaped had transmitted everything. And now billions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched in stunned silence as the human fleet tore through the Krath raiders. On the Coalition homeworld, Ambassador Sora sat in the council chambers and watched the alien representatives whisper among themselves. She was young for an ambassador, only 38, but she had been chosen because she understood politics. Now, as she watched the council members point at her with their various appendages, she wondered if understanding politics would be enough. Councillor Vreth, an avian species with brilliant red feathers, stood from his perch. His species had been part of the coalition for 3,000 years. They considered themselves enlightened and civilized. They looked at humans the way humans looked at wild animals. "Ambassador Sora," Vreth said, his voice carrying easily across the chamber, "we have reviewed the footage from the incident. Your Admiral Hyun violated no fewer than 7 coalition protocols. He engaged in combat without authorization. He used excessive force. He destroyed a Krath vessel that was attempting to retreat. These are not the actions of a civilized species. Sora stood slowly. She had practiced this speech 100 times on the journey here. But now that the moment had arrived, she found herself improvising. Counselor Vreth, with respect, my people saved 45,000 Valerian lives yesterday. While we waited for your authorization, those lives would have been lost. We made a choice. We chose life over protocol. Another counselor, a crystalline being whose name Sora could not pronounce, chimed in. The Krath Imperium has lodged a formal protest. They claim your species attacked their ships without provocation. Without provocation? Sora's voice rose despite her attempt to stay calm. They were firing on a civilian vessel. They were about to slaughter or enslave 45,000 innocent beings. If that's not provocation, then I don't understand the meaning of the word. The Krath vessel that escaped transmitted something else, Vreth said, his eyes fixed on Sora with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. They transmitted medical scans of the battle. Your Captain Nari commanded her ship with a broken arm. Your pilots ejected from their fighters and treated it as routine. Your crews continued fighting through injuries that would have incapacitated any other species. Ambassador, you must understand how this appears to us. You are terrifying, Sora took a breath. We're from Earth, Counselor. On our world, everything tried to kill us. The weather, the diseases, the predators, even the plants. We evolved to be tough because we had no choice. But that toughness means we can protect those who aren't as strong. We're not monsters. We're survivors who chose to use our strength for good. The council chamber filled with murmurs and chittering sounds. Sora could not tell if they were convinced or horrified. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Krath Imperium held its own council. The War Marshal stood before his assembled fleet commanders, his scales dark with rage. He was ancient by Krath standards, nearly 200 years old, and he had never known defeat until yesterday. The Deathworlders have humiliated us, he hissed. For months we have raided Coalition space with impunity. We have taken what we wanted. And now these primitives destroy our ships and make us flee like frightened hatchlings. One of his commanders, younger and less scarred, spoke carefully. War Marshal, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. Their ships are inferior to ours in every measurable way. Yet they defeated us through sheer aggression and pain tolerance that defies logic. The War Marshal's tail lashed out, striking the young commander across the face. Coward, you suggest we flee from primitives? You suggest we let this insult stand? No, War Marshal, the commander said quickly, blood dripping from his snout. I merely suggest caution. There will be no caution, the War Marshal declared. We will assemble the full might of the Imperium. Every warship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. We will crush these humans and show the galaxy what happens when you challenge Krath supremacy. Send the word. We march to war. Back on Admiral Hyun's flagship, the mood was tense. The fleet had limped to a nearby Coalition station for repairs. Dr. Yuna moved through the medical bay, treating the wounded. The injuries ranged from minor burns to severe radiation exposure, but every single crew member had insisted on minimal treatment so they could return to duty faster. A young Valerian child sat in one corner of the medical bay, watching Dr. Yuna work. The child's large eyes tracked every movement with fear and fascination. Are you going to hurt me? The child asked in a tiny voice. Dr. Yuna stopped and knelt down to the child's level. No, sweetheart. I'm here to help. Why would you think I'd hurt you? Because you're scary, the child said honestly. You're a Deathworlder. You killed those bad aliens to save us, but killing is bad, isn't it? Yuna felt her heart break a little. She reached out slowly, letting the child see her hand coming, and gently touched the small being's shoulder. Where I come from, Yuna said softly. Scary means alive. It means we survived when everything around us tried to make us die. And because we learned to survive, we can protect people like you. Being scary isn't bad if you use it to help others. The child thought about this for a moment. So you're like a guardian monster? Yuna laughed despite herself. I guess we are. Guardian monsters. I like that. Elsewhere on the station, Intelligence Officer Minho sat in a dark room reviewing intercepted Krath communications. What he found made his blood run cold. The Krath were not retreating. They were not reconsidering. They were mobilizing everything they had for a massive retaliation strike. He immediately sent the data to Admiral Hyun. When Hyun read the report, he did not look surprised. He looked tired. How many ships? He asked. 57 confirmed warships, Minho replied. They're coming for us specifically. They transmitted our fleet signature across their entire empire. This is personal now. Hyun nodded slowly. When will they arrive? 6 days, sir. Maybe 7 if we're lucky. Captain Nari, her arm now properly splinted and bandaged, stood nearby. We should retreat. Call for coalition reinforcements. We can't fight 57 ships with our 5 vessels. If we retreat, Hyun said quietly, we show the Krath that overwhelming force works against humans. Every human colony in space becomes a target. They'll think they can intimidate us. Sir, Nari said carefully, they might be right. We won 1 battle against 3 ships. 57 is suicide. Hyun turned to look at his captain. How's your arm? Nari blinked at the sudden change in topic. It hurts like hell, but I can still command a ship. Exactly, Hyun said. You broke your arm and kept fighting because that's what humans do. We don't quit just because something hurts. We don't run just because the odds are bad. Our ancestors crawled out of Earth's oceans and conquered a world that tried to kill them every single day. We're their descendants. Running isn't in our nature. So we fight, Nari said. It was not a question. We fight, Hyun confirmed. And we make damn sure the Krath remember it for the next 1,000 years. Lieutenant Jiho, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Sir, the coalition ambassador is requesting a meeting with you. She says the council wants to discuss the situation. Tell her I'll be there in an hour, Hyun said. And Jiho? Start preparing defensive strategies. We have 6 days to figure out how to beat an enemy that outnumbers us 10-1. Yes, sir, Jiho said, but Hyun could hear the doubt in his voice. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Hyun stood alone in his quarters and looked at a picture of Earth on his wall. Beautiful blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked so peaceful from space. But Hyun knew the truth. Earth was a forge that had hammered humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. Now they would find out if that was enough. His communicator buzzed. It was Ambassador Sora from the Coalition homeworld. Admiral, she said, her face appearing on his screen. The Council is in chaos. Half of them want to expel us for violating protocols. The other half want to give us medals. And the Krath just declared formal war against humanity specifically. They're calling it a matter of honor. Let them come, Hyun said. We'll be ready, Sora stared at him. Admiral, you can't seriously be considering making a stand. The odds are impossible. Ambassador, respectfully, you're not military. You don't understand. If we run now, we lose more than this battle. We lose respect. We lose deterrence. Every enemy will think they can push us around if they just bring enough ships. That's not acceptable. Then what do you propose? Sora asked. Hyun smiled grimly. I propose we remind the galaxy why Earth is a Class 12 death world. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a blaze of energy. Admiral Hyun's eyes locked onto the scene before them and his jaw tightened. The Valerian colony ship was massive, nearly twice the size of his flagship, but it was never meant for war. Its shields flickered like a dying candle, and chunks of its hull drifted away into space. 3 Krath battlecruisers circled the wounded ship like sharks around bleeding prey. Their weapons fired in steady rhythm, each blast tearing away more of the colony ship's defenses. The Krath were reptilian creatures, cold-blooded in every sense of the word. They had been terrorizing the outer systems for months, taking slaves and cargo with no fear of consequences. Today, that would change. Target acquisition confirmed, Lieutenant Jiho reported. All 3 Krath vessels are focused on the colony ship. They haven't detected us yet. Good, Hyun said. Weapons hot. No warnings. No negotiations. They fired on civilians. That's all I need to know. Captain Nari's voice came through sharp and clear. Indomitable, ready to engage. Recommend we use the colony ship's gravity well for a slingshot approach. Hit them before they know what's happening. Hyun nodded. Do it. All ships follow Nari's lead. Commander Doyen, launch fighters, but keep them back until the main engagement starts. I want those Krath ships confused and bleeding before they understand what hit them. The human fleet moved with precision that most alien species found impossible. They were not graceful like the elegant Valerian ships. They were not massive like the Krath cruisers. But they moved with the deadly efficiency of predators who had spent millions of years hunting on a world that wanted them dead. The Indomitable led the charge, diving toward the colony ship at a speed that made the bridge crew press back into their seats. The gravity well grabbed them, whipping the massive dreadnought around in a tight arc that would have torn apart any other species' vessel. Humans had evolved under gravity that crushed most aliens. Their ships were built to match, firing. Nari shouted. The Indomitable's main cannons roared to life. Streams of superheated plasma and kinetic rounds slammed into the nearest Krath cruiser's shields. The alien ship reeled, its shields flaring bright red as they struggled to absorb the impact. The other human ships followed, each one executing the same impossible maneuver. They came at the Krath from different angles, their weapons hammering into the enemy with relentless fury. Krath ships are responding, Jiho called out. They're breaking formation and returning fire. The first Krath plasma bolt hit the Indomitable's forward shields. The ship shuddered but held. Nari's voice remained calm. Shields at 70%. Continuing attack. Admiral Hyun watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. The Krath were good fighters. They were experienced warriors who had terrorized countless systems. But they had never fought humans before. They had never encountered an enemy that seemed to ignore pain and damage. Admiral, the lead Krath vessel is trying to target the colony ship again, Jiho warned. Not happening, Hyun growled. All ships focus fire on that cruiser. Burn it down! The human fleet concentrated their weapons on the lead Krath ship. Their shields collapsed under the assault and hull plating began to vaporize. The Krath vessel tried to maneuver away, but Commander Doyen's fighters swarmed in like angry hornets. Doyen's voice crackled over the channel. Fighters engaging. Gods, these things are ugly up close. The human fighters were small and fast, piloted by men and women who had trained in simulators that would have killed most alien species from the stress alone. They dove at the wounded Krath cruiser, their weapons tearing into the exposed hull. One fighter took a direct hit from a point defense turret. Hyun saw it on his display and felt his stomach tighten, but then the pilot's voice came through, shaken but alive. Ejecting, someone pick me up when this is over. The pilot shot out of the dying fighter in an escape pod just before his craft exploded. Most alien species would have considered that pilot dead or injured beyond recovery. Humans just considered it a minor inconvenience. Second Krath vessel is moving to intercept us, Nari reported. Her voice was strained now. They're targeting our engines. Evasive maneuvers, Hyun ordered. Give them a hard target. The Indomitable rolled to one side, its massive bulk moving with surprising agility. But the Krath ship was fast too. A plasma bolt struck the dreadnought's port side and Hyun felt the deck shake beneath him. Shields down to 40%, Nari said. Hull breach on deck 7. Sealing now. Status of the crew, Hyun demanded. Minor casualties. They're already back at their stations. That was humanity in a nutshell. Other species would have needed medical evacuation. Humans just needed a moment to catch their breath and get angry. The battle turned into a brutal slugging match. The human ships took damage that would have crippled any other fleet, but they kept fighting. The Krath poured everything they had into the attack, but the humans refused to die. On the Indomitable's bridge, a support beam collapsed from a damaged ceiling. It struck Captain Nari across the shoulder, and Hyun heard her cry out in pain. Medical officers rushed forward, but Nari waved them off. I'm fine, she snapped, her left arm hanging at an odd angle. Get back to your stations. Someone get me a pain blocker and a splint. She continued commanding her ship with a broken arm, barking orders and coordinating fire control. The Krath would have been horrified. Most species would retreat to medical care. But humans had evolved fighting predators with broken bones and torn muscles. Pain was just information to be managed. First Krath cruiser's reactor is critical, Jiho announced. They're trying to evacuate. Don't let them escape, Hyun ordered. Fire everything. The human fleet poured fire into the dying Krath ship. Its reactor went critical, and the vessel exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. The shockwave buffeted the human ships, but they held their formation. 2 down, Nari said with savage satisfaction. 1 to go. The remaining Krath cruiser seemed to realize it was facing something it did not understand. These humans did not fight like civilized species. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not negotiate when outnumbered. They just kept coming, relentless and terrifying. The Krath captain made a choice. His ship's engines flared bright and it turned to flee. They're running, Jiho said with surprise. Let them go, Hyun ordered. Our priority is the Valerians. The human fleet turned toward the colony ship. It was still intact, barely. Its shields were gone and its hull was scarred with damage, but it was alive. Hail them, Hyun said. The view screen flickered, and a Valerian appeared. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes. He looked at Admiral Hyun with an expression that mixed gratitude and terror. "This is Vessel Master Thirin of the Sanctuary of Stars," the alien said in a shaking voice. "You saved us. But what you did, the violence, I have never seen anything like it." Hyun looked at the Valerian and felt a strange sadness. "I'm sorry you had to see that. But your people are safe now. That's all that matters." Thirin stared at him for a long moment. "Who are you?" "We're human," Hyun said simply. "We're from Earth, and we don't let innocent people die. Not while we can help." The Valerian's eyes widened with recognition and fear. "Deathworlders." Hyun smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "Yes, but today that worked in your favor." Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the endless stars beyond the viewport. His fleet had been patrolling this sector of space for 3 weeks now, and nothing interesting had happened. The 5 human ships moved through the darkness like silent predators, their engines humming with power that would terrify most alien species. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition 15 years ago. It had not been an easy partnership. Most aliens looked at humans with fear in their eyes. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The gravity alone would crush most alien species. The diseases would kill them in hours. The predators would hunt them for sport. But humans had evolved there. They had survived there. They had thrived there. The other species in the galaxy called them Deathworlders. They said it with disgust and fear. Humans were too strong, too fast, too aggressive. They healed from wounds that would kill other species. They could survive in environments that were considered impossible. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy fighting. Hyun knew what the aliens thought. He had heard the whispers at coalition meetings. Barbarians, monsters, barely civilized animals. For 15 years, humanity had tried to prove them wrong. They had followed every rule. They had been polite and careful. They had held back their true nature. But Hyun was getting tired of it. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission." Lieutenant Jiho called from his station. The young officer's fingers danced across his console, his face tense with concentration. "Put it through," Hyun ordered. The speakers crackled with static, and then a desperate voice filled the bridge. It was high-pitched and musical, the sound of a species that had never known real fear until now. "This is the Valerian colony ship, Sanctuary of Stars, under attack. 3 Krath battlecruisers. Shields at 15%. Please, anyone. We have 45,000 civilians on board, children. Please help us," and the transmission cut off into static. The bridge went silent. Every officer turned to look at Admiral Hyun. They all knew what this meant. The Valerians were a peaceful species, fragile and kind. They had evolved on a paradise world where nothing wanted to hurt them. Their ships were not built for war. Their people did not know how to fight, and the Krath were killers. "Sir, I'm pulling up the distress beacon location," Jiho said quickly. "They're 2 hours away at maximum burn." Captain Nari's voice came through from the dreadnought Indomitable. "Admiral, the nearest coalition response fleet is 6 days out. We're the only ones close enough to help." Hyun nodded slowly. He had expected this. The coalition had protocols for everything. Non-interference protocols, authorization protocols, diplomatic protocols. If he followed the rules, he would need to wait for permission from the Coalition Council. That would take hours, maybe days. 45,000 Valerians did not have hours. "What are your orders, sir?" Nari asked. Dr. Yuna stepped forward from her station at the back of the bridge. She was the fleet's chief xenobiologist and expert on alien life. Her voice was soft but firm. "Admiral, the Valerians are dying. Their physiology cannot handle the stress of combat. Even if their ship survives, many will die from shock alone." Hyun closed his eyes. He thought about all the rules humanity had followed. All the times they had held back. All the times they had proven they could be civilized and peaceful. Then he thought about 45,000 innocent people dying while he waited for permission to save them. "Prep all ships for combat," Hyun said. His voice was calm and cold. "Maximum burn. Set course for the Valerian ship. Battle stations." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Officers shouted orders. Alarms began to wail. The ship's engines roared to life with power that shook the deck beneath their feet. "Sir," Jiho said carefully, "the coalition protocols state that we should wait for authorization before engaging in combat operations." Hyun turned to look at the young lieutenant. "I know what the protocols say. But I also know that we're not going to sit here and let innocent people die. Humanity spent too long fighting each other to ignore someone who needs our help now. Nari's voice came through again. All ships reporting ready, Admiral. We'll reach the Valerians in 90 minutes at this speed. Good, Hyun said. Have Commander Taeyang prep his Marines for possible boarding actions. Tell Engineer Hana to push the engines as hard as she can. I don't care if we burn out half our systems. We're not arriving too late. Lieutenant Jiho worked frantically at his console. Sir, I'm reading the energy signatures from the Krath ships. They're heavy cruisers, military grade. Their shields and weapons are significantly more powerful than ours. How many ships do they have? Hyun asked. 3 confirmed, sir. And we have 5. Hyun smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator. The Krath have been raiding Coalition space for months. They think they're untouchable because everyone is afraid of them. It's time someone taught them a lesson. Dr. Yuna moved to stand beside the Admiral. Sir, the Krath are known slave traders. If they captured the Valerians, they'll sell them to the highest bidder. The Valerians are so fragile that most of them will die in captivity. That's not going to happen, Hyun said firmly. The fleet burned through space at speeds that would tear apart most alien vessels. Human ships were built different. They were built to withstand punishment. They were built by a species that understood violence and survival. Commander Doyun's voice crackled over the communications channel from his fighter wing. Admiral, my pilots are ready. Just give us a target and we'll make it disappear. Stay ready, Commander, Hyun replied. This is going to get ugly. Nari spoke again from the Indomitable. Admiral, are you sure about this? If we engage without authorization, the Coalition might expel us. Humanity could lose everything we've worked for. Hyun looked at the stars again. He thought about Earth, that beautiful and terrible world that had forged humanity into what they were. He thought about all the rules and politics and fear. Then he thought about a Valerian child, terrified and alone, waiting for help that might never come. I'm sure, Hyun said. If the Coalition wants to punish us for saving lives, then maybe we don't belong in the Coalition. Humanity didn't crawl out of Earth's hell just to stand by and watch genocide. We're going in, and we're going in hard. The bridge crew straightened at their stations. Whatever doubts they had were gone now. This was what they had trained for. This was what humanity did best. The fleet raced toward battle, and Admiral Hyun felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like a human again.